We're going to move now into talking about proactive threat hunting for enterprise organizations. Please welcome to the stage from Binalyze, Robert O'Leary, Senior Solutions Architect. Robert?
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. What I'd like to do is cover the proactive threat hunting for enterprises. The concept of proactive threat hunting has been getting more and more attention. What we know is that incident response is a well-defined, the steps, the methodologies have been very well-defined, and everybody's got their workflows. What we are looking at is automating a lot of that workflow to make your personnel even more efficient than they currently are. Before I get into that, I just wanted to give you a little bit of background as to why I'm even here, how I was qualified to be here. I started my career at the New Jersey State Police, and after about 3.5 years on the road, I was assigned to work undercover. And it's kind of funny because when they were wiring me up with the mic, I had a little bit of flashback being wired up for undercover work. In the course of that, you can imagine everybody we locked up had a burner phone, a clone phone, a stolen phone. Every cop I ever met in my life took the phone, put it in an envelope, put it in a box, put it on the shelf, and nothing ever happened to it. I was fortunate enough to get the security departments for the 3 wireless carriers, all happen to be headquartered in New Jersey, worked out great. Taught me how to dump the phones, and now I start building cases based on common phone numbers from street dealers to their suppliers, and then up the chain. We started making cases, and the thing is, in the state police, you always had to put out a preliminary report on your investigations. Most units put out 1 a week, a couple a month, that kind of thing. We were putting out 7, 8 a day. And the Auto Theft Task Force happened to be in the office next to us. And for those of you that are familiar with New Jersey, the Union, Hudson, Essex County area was the auto theft capital of the world, so they were very busy. But they kept getting cell phones, so they asked me to do it for them. And then major crimes got involved, and then arson got involved. Finally, the state police decided that they wanted a dedicated unit just to investigate technology crimes and support technology crimes in all the other units. So they assigned me and 1 other detective to start the unit. Thinking ahead here, we're not going to invest a whole lot just in case it's a huge failure. We did start the first statewide electronic crime or technology crime task force unit in the United States, and ironically, the other guy that started it with me is the CISO of the state of New Jersey now. So anyway, finished my career out there, retired after having run the investigations, the forensics, and the cyber team, as well as child exploitation, and then moved into the National Institute of Justice, where I ran the Electronic Crime Technology Center. When that funding ran out, I went into the private sector, and I was director of incident response and digital forensic services for Access Data. Some of you may be familiar with it, the company that was bought up by Xtero. I moved on to Nuix for a few years. I was the head of investigations and came on board with Binalyze because I really liked their product. I saw it come into the US about 18, 20 months ago, and I was really intrigued by it. And I hope that you're going to understand the value that we see behind that. So some of the things that we look at Binalyze, and for the for the value in it, what we're looking at, wonder why that didn't advance. It's a leader in proactive threat hunting, and one of the reasons is because we can automate that process and make your people available to perform proactive threat hunting through triage and customizing that triage. So we look at what is proactive threat hunting. It's the process of identifying the events, the triggers, and the indicators of compromise for exploitation. So what we're looking at is what are we looking for in proactive threat hunting? And this specifically addressed the topic of risk management here in this conference. So what we want to know is what are the challenges? And every one of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the challenges. I don't need to iterate them, but having run these teams and having had teams working under me, to handle these cases, you had both the retainer clients and the ones that sprung up because they got that letter from the FBI and had about 10 days to respond to it. So you can imagine that utilization was always a key element to our profitability, and we had to make sure that we were leveraging the resources and assets we had to the best of our ability. Some of the other things to keep in mind are not only personnel, skilled personnel, but also the challenges of getting that data. And often what we would run into, and I'm sure you've seen it, is the problem of over-collecting. End up getting disk images and everything else, and then having to process that data took time to get to the facts, took time to get to what was the ultimate cause, likely cause, probable cause of the event. This is one of the things that I love this screen, this slide, because if you look at it, you'll notice that in 2000, next generation antivirus came along. That was the next incident. Anybody have an idea why? All right, I'll tell you what my opinion is. Now, you may or may not agree with me, but 1999, the malicious macrovirus, the first self-replicating virus Trojan worm, was released by David Smith out of Florham Park, New Jersey. I'm lead detective at New Jersey State Police. We're all over this case. He releases it on a Friday before Palm Sunday, and by Monday, it has shut down servers, email servers, all over the world. The bombing campaign over Kosovo happened to have started that week. NATO believed that it was a state-sponsored cyber attack. We knew who it was. The FBI is trying to tell us, no, don't go lock that guy up because we have the real suspect and he's in Wisconsin. And I actually had a major call me into his office and said, are you sure? I'm like, Major, I have an affidavit here that I already swore out to a judge for a warrant. I'm sure. So having spent 9 years working undercover, I was able to sit surveillance for days. And I was waiting for him to come back to his apartment. And I knew he was, but he was only coming back getting mail, and we were waiting. My lieutenant called me up half hourly, every 30 minutes. What are we doing? And I've got a team of 30 detectives from all kinds of agencies surrounding this apartment complex, waiting to execute the warrant. And he calls me at 7:30 and says, what's your plan? I was like, I'm going to give him another half hour. He goes, nope. Louis Freeh just had a press conference, and he announced a manhunt for David Smith, for the writer of the macrovirus. So execute it now. So sure enough, to beat the FBI in the door, we execute the warrant. He's not there, but we developed enough information that he was, and that's another great story, but I won't go into it. He was down the road at his brother's. He ended up giving the entire thing up. I think the estimates were, in 1999 dollars, $80 million in damages to restore the systems. $80 million. He's the only virus writer that I know of to date that actually went to jail. But to give you an idea, these are some of the risks. You'll see that what the CISOs are telling us is that 78% of them believe that the risk is high. I kind of think even that they were being optimistic, and then the markets, the segments of the markets that are most at risk, ironically, are education and research. Oh, getting back to the whole why 2000 was the next iteration of antivirus, everybody jumped on that in 2000 after the malicious macrovirus and a couple of others, I Love You and LoveBug, a couple others that followed along, caused the antivirus companies to actually kick up their game a bit. But anyway, when we look at this, education and research is probably the most highly affected. Anybody want to give a suggestion as to why education and research? Because they're incubators for knowledge. They're testing everything. I don't know about you, when I was in college, I loved running programs through the servers just to see what I could make them do. So it was one of those things where that's obvious because it's a very difficult balance for them to strike, securing those systems, but also allowing for educational evolution, I guess you'd say. Some of the other things we look at, though, are the financial data and reputational risks. They're huge. Reputational risks, probably above all, because it can take years to recover from that. So we look at some of those stats in there and what are the costs. One of the biggest things that we look at in proactive cyber threat hunting is the ability to monitor, detect, and mitigate those risks as quickly as possible, resolve those incidents as quickly as possible. And business continuity. Some of the other things, it actually ties into the previous panel. Some of the risks are those SEC regulations additionally require not only these assessors, the consultants that they're using, but also the policies, procedures, but the board of director oversight to manage cybersecurity risks and the management's role. These are all things that the SEC is requiring, and it all basically increases everyone's role and responsibility in managing cyber risks. This is where automated incident response comes into play. Automation is becoming increasingly vital to proactive threat hunting. Basically, the efficiency, stability, the consistency, reducing the human error, because a lot of times if we're leaving it to manual tasks, some things might tend to get overlooked, some things might get skipped, some things just in a matter of efficiency, trying to get things done. I've been in that situation where the guy comes comes to the door of your office every 15, 20 minutes, what's the update? What's the update? I don't have anything for you right now. I'll give it to you as soon as I get it. This is where you need that consistency and standardization. So if we look at proactive threat hunting using Binalize Air, it's exactly what it's designed to do. It takes the trigger or the alert from any of your endpoint detection tools. Well, not any, 27 I think at this point. Your SIM, SOAR, EDR, XDR, MDR issues the alert. Generally, the alert is assigned to a consultant. Consultant has to now go and look at the alert, make a determination as to the priority or the risk, make an assessment as to how vulnerable they are, what the best methodology is, and they're getting inundated with these every hour. They're getting tons and tons of these alerts. So if you can automate that process and scan the organization for TTPs very quickly using Yara, Sigma, OS query rules, as well as MITRE ATT&CK framework scanners and the drone scanners, you're able to identify those threats much more quickly and react to them, mitigate them, isolate the infected machines, prevent lateral movement, prevent further infection across your network, and the ability to pull that data back. So what this automated incident response does is allow you to configure acquisition profiles to pull just the data that you feel is relevant from Windows, Mac, and Linux operating systems, and be able to analyze that data automatically, run the scanners against it, and generate a report in typically less than 10 minutes. So this gives you an idea, and I'm happy to go through a more thorough demo with you. And these screen captures aren't great, but being able to assess this data when your consultants, your investigators, whatever term you use, what title you give them, when they get assigned the case, instead of looking at the alert and making a determination, they can go to the investigative hub and start to look at exactly what the results are. This is their first step, not pulling that alert and doing a manual analysis on it. This gives them the ability to see what's the highest priority machine, what are the risk machines, and what machines do I need to isolate immediately to prevent further expansion or further distribution of the malware throughout my environment. Now, the other thing that's great about this is once you identify that, you can leverage the triage capability to write a Yara rule, Sigma rule, OS query rule, and scan all the other assets in your environment to determine whether or not it was migrated to them, or if you even identified patient 0 yet. So it gives you the capability real quick. You can see here, it tells me right up at the top what my MITRE framework, MITRE ATT&CK framework results were, but I can also see the high, in this case, the matched where we used keywords, and the medium or risk value, but we also assign a score or a threat to it. And that's where the color code comes in, because we can make a determination, or you can make a determination, as to the highest vulnerability or the highest risk machines and address those as quickly as possible. Additionally, you can timeline those machines to start to see visually how that attack happened. What was the first machine? What was the point of entry? What was the exploit? And where did it go from there? And what other machines might have been identified? You'll notice there are also flags at the top, and I think the one that's highlighted shows the flag. You can actually see in the bottom screen what the flag was, that lower panel, and I don't remember what that particular one was, but it tells me exactly the flag and the path. Now I know exactly what machine and what path to go to remediate that, and I can do that through an interact shell, which is essentially what it sounds like, a shell that allows me to go right into that machine and interact with it directly and remediate any vulnerabilities that were identified. The other thing we can do is baseline a machine when you first provision it or first deploy this on your network, and then when that machine starts to exhibit unusual behavior or anomalous behavior, you can actually do a comparison. In this case, it was 2 of my own machines. I think I did them like 3 months apart. I forget this particular one. But it shows me all of the results. Everything that changed was added or was deleted. And in the lower right corner there shows you exactly what it was, and it gives me the hash value. So in the event of a malware distribution that was masquerading as a legitimate file, I would know what the new hash value was, and I can simply scan the rest of my environment for that hash value. Additionally, included in this are the reporting and ROI metrics, the utilization essentially of your team. The value in this is, instead of having to send those workers, those people out to the location, pull the collection, process all the data, everything can be done remotely, brought back into their console and do their analysis, thereby making much more valuable utilization of their time. These gives you some of the acquisition profiles, and it shows you can leverage the MITRE ATT&CK framework as well as the drone analyzers that are built into it, as well as keywords. Additionally, you can look at the triage rules. And here, this is actually kind of cool because you can leverage or build as many triage rules as you want. One of the things I want to highlight here is this new feature. It just came out in this version, our Frank AI. If you look at that, this gives me the ability to ask Frank AI within the Air platform. I typed one in, write a YAR rule to find multiple hash values. Generates it. All I have to do is fill in the hash values. Each place it says hash 1, hash 2, hash 3. Expand it if I have more than 3, and simply cut and paste, create a YAR rule, and run it and scan it against my entire environment. So as soon as I find that malware, that hash, now I don't have to do it from what's in my own environment even. How many familiar with the sizzle alerts, the FBI alerts, everything else? I find them incredibly valuable because they give you so much information in those things. They give you the hash value, they give you the methodology, they give you what it does. You can pull that directly out of those alerts, plug it into a YAR rule, scan your entire environment, and you're proactive threat hunting to determine whether or not it's actually hit your environment yet. So you're able to leverage that extremely quickly. As I mentioned earlier, we'll pull the alerts triggers from, I think it's 27 webhooks. And you'll notice here's a sampling. So we have the Carbon Black, Splunk, Microsoft Sentinel. I have an entire list there with Sentinel-1, QRadar, Rapid7. If you're interested in seeing the entire list, I'm happy to go through it. But this gives you an idea. Any one of your endpoint detection tools kicks off the alert. You can automate the collection process so that when your consultants, your investigators, your analysts are assigned the case, they actually have results to start looking at immediately. Additionally, this gives you a better idea what that compare looked like. So when I baseline that machine, when the heck was that? This was only about 3 weeks apart, 2 weeks apart. So you can see 39 items were added, 359 were changed, 43 were deleted. I can go through that and see exactly what those were. So this may point to the vulnerability. Additionally, you have the capability that once the incident is resolved, the machine's contained, it no longer poses an active threat. You still have the capability of leveraging the File Explorer to go through a disk image and find any other anomalies in that. So again, this would be follow-up, but once the incident has already been resolved. So we look at the capability to automate and integrate and be able to pull all of that data back together using a single platform, pulling from the existing endpoint detection tool that you're already using. My hyperlink's not in here. One of the things I wanted to share with you, and I'd be happy to show you, didn't happen to come up on this one, but if you come over to the booth, we actually have an infographic on the site. How many people are doing incident response or supervising or running incident response? Okay, ballpark time frame to resolve an incident currently manually. My experience was 12 to 16 hours, best case scenario. I can show you how we can do it, and it's designed to allow your people to resolve an incident within 4 hours. And the reason I say incident is the investigation may not be complete, but the incident is resolved, the vulnerabilities identified, mitigated, the machine's back online, while you can then continue the investigation. But more importantly, you don't have to lose any personnel. Those personnel that you would normally have assigned for that 12, 16, possibly 20-hour time frame can now go back to proactive threat hunting. Using this tool, finding the alerts, finding the vulnerabilities, and scanning your entire environment for any indications that it exists or existed, and you're able to push it all out into a report and mitigate it. So the value of automated incident response is clear, and it's obviously going to be the next evolution in cyber incident response.
First of all, I'd like to ask you a question, if I
Sure.
could, Robert. Fascinated by your background. Talk a little bit about your career path from police to cybersecurity.
Well, that was the anomaly. Getting the option to go to undercover narcotics was, just incredible. Something I couldn't turn down. I mean, you get to take off that nice wool uniform that you wore summer and winter, and put on street clothes, and go out. And one of the worst things I think that you could ever do, and I've said this before, and I'll admit it, the worst thing an agency could actually do is give a 26-year-old guy, single guy, a really nice car, Monte Carlo SS, that was seized from a drug dealer. He can't get a ticket because all his ID is fictitious and the car's fictitiously registered. The state pays for the gas and pays for the maintenance. And your job is to go out and buy dope all day.
You traded this in.
Well, I did, because it occurred to me 9 years into it, there's not a lot of career development capability for buying dope. Just about anybody can do it. So what I was able to do was start to pull the data out of cell phones and turn that into an entire career path. Though I didn't know it at the time. I was just trying to build cases, and it turned into an entire unit. Well, it was 2 of us to begin with. It's now like a 55-person bureau. And I keep going back thinking, yeah, we worked in like a closet in an old building. But that was my career path. And when I retired, I went to work for the National Institute of Justice, ran the Electronic Crime Technology Center, and then moved into the private sector.
Excellent. Now, when they start seizing nice vehicles from hackers, then there's an opportunity.
Well, actually, it's kind of funny, because I did tear a page out of that book. For those of you that haven't been in law enforcement, the way we get those vehicles, it's a use order. Essentially, we can prove that it was used in the commission of a crime, so therefore we apply to the court, we get a use order, we seize the vehicle, and we can convert it to our own use. I tore a page out of the book because the guy, Mike Garrity, that started the high-tech crime with me and his unit with me is now CISO of New Jersey, came out of IT. So he wasn't familiar at all. And we had garbage machines to be doing investigations, forensics, and everything else. I said, why don't we get a use order? We're seizing high-end gaming machines and everything else. So I got use orders for them. We'd image the hard drive and preserve it, because that's your data. We'd use the machine for all our investigations. And then, obviously we just started building an inventory of really powerful machines in a network.
Robert O'Leary, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.